Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. I'm Dr. Laura, here to talk to you about a topic that I'm really into making a difference on these days, and that is toxic bosses and helping people understand, navigate, and exit and then heal from these types of bosses. So today's episode, I'm going to talk specifically about the brutal behaviors of toxic bosses. And I've been engaged in a lot of research lately, research with people who have reported to toxic bosses across North America over the last 5 years. So they would have reported to the toxic boss over 5 years, and they have since left the toxic boss. And myself and my research assistant, Renee Pye, have been asking all kinds of questions and trying to get to the bottom of how the behaviors and impacts of these toxic bosses work. And to define a toxic boss, it can be any level of leader, from a first-time manager all the way to the CEO or the chair of the board. And the real differentiator for a toxic boss is that they cause a lot of damage to the person. They cause damage to their motivation, their commitment, their engagement, and also psychological and physical health damage. We are learning so much about this topic and how much the treatment, the abuse, the gaslighting, manipulation and control, narcissism, authoritarian leadership, deception, all of these different ways of leading in an abusive, toxic way is what defines a toxic boss. So today I want to speak about 3 types of behaviors. And actually there's 14 categories of behaviors that our research has come up with. And I know it sounds like a lot, but what I've learned is that these very difficult leaders have many different ways of coming across. So it's not a one size fits all. But the 3 different sets of behaviors I want to share with you today and see if you can relate, or perhaps a loved one or someone in your organization is experiencing. These 3 are control and micromanagement, number 1. Number 2, power dynamics and favoritism. And number 3, self-serving and exploitative behavior. So those are the 3 that I'm going to start with today. And in other episodes, I'll share more with you. But starting with control and micromanagement, I think is one that many people, unfortunately, can relate to. And I gotta say, not every micromanager is a toxic boss, okay? So micromanagement is something that can happen early on in someone's leadership career where they just don't trust people are going to do the job that they would. And they know they're accountable for the work, so they end up really staying on top of it and sometimes redoing the work and staying super involved because they want a great product and they don't trust the person. But what they don't realize is by not giving the person the chance to learn and grow, they're doing a disservice and they're making way more work for themselves. And they're demotivating the person in the process. So this is common. Micromanagement is a common challenge that leaders need to work through, managers need to work through as they grow into leaders. But where a toxic boss is different is that the control and micromanagement is massive. They are micromanaging to the extreme. They want things done their way. It's their way or the highway, and they do not want other people's ideas, opinions, improvements, brainstorming. They don't value the input of the team. And we know that a team is much more powerful than any one individual. However, these toxic bosses want full control. They are completely in the control seat, and they don't solicit anyone's opinions. Hence, people just learn not to give opinions. And the risk of that is just a one-sided viewpoint and really missing out on wonderful opportunities to make systems, processes, ideas, projects better. So the toxic boss is also very skilled at undermining, at making you feel undermined. So sometimes what I've seen in the research is that the toxic boss will go below you to your direct reports and, undermine your management, your leadership of these people, which is a terrible feeling. They undermine your authority, your accountability. So you feel like it doesn't really matter what you're doing, and you are just on edge waiting for the next time that they undermine you. And because they're in a position of power, it's very difficult to do anything about it. The other thing that these controlling micromanagers do is they isolate you from other people with higher authority. So they do not want you talking to their boss. They do not, heaven forbid, want you talking to anyone at the next level of leadership, the CEO, anyone else, because that threatens their territory. They want to form a clear boundary where you cannot get through, because they do not want you to look good, to shine. They do not want to risk them not being seen as the brightest, the best. So especially if you're a high performer, you'll find that a toxic boss will not want you to get in front of anyone, including the board. They'll want to keep you at a distance, which ultimately stifles your own career. And I think that's super sad when that happens. Really disappointing. So I'm going to talk next about power dynamics and favoritism, which leads to unfair decision making. So what a toxic boss tends to do is they play favorites. They have their favorite people that they are friends, or people that they like, people that are yes people that will do what they say, and people who are similar to them. So they tend to promote friends, hire people that they like, make promotion decisions based on personal feelings rather than performance or output or education or skill. And these toxic bosses may only give professional development opportunities, perks, etc., to their favorites. So what happens is it creates silos or disconnects in the workplace between the favorites and the non-favorites. So if you are a non-favorite, it is very hard to advance your career, to grow, to learn, to develop. And it's a terrible way to destroy a team culture, because some people feel like they belong and other people feel like they don't belong and they don't matter. And what does their opinion matter anyway? So then you get this concept called groupthink. Only the favorites have an opinion, and it can lead to making decisions with a limited perspective and highly demotivating to the people who aren't favorites. These toxic bosses, when they are creating these power dynamics, they also like to talk about people behind their back. So they'll have closed door conversations and talk about different people with their direct reports, and pit people against each other, which is really, really uncomfortable, toxic, unfair, unprofessional, all of the above. And it does a lot of damage. And you may be at the receiving end of this, where your boss is talking about and cutting down your colleagues, which is really uncomfortable and unfair of a position to put you in as well. But watch out for this warning sign. If they are gossiping about team members with other team members, it is a real sign of a toxic boss. And creating a divisive environment where people are competing against each other in an unhealthy way. Some fun competition is fine, but when you're pitting people against each other and you are creating a great divide in your own team, you're really doing a disservice to people. So that is another clear sign of a toxic boss. And they are really creating an environment that you don't want to be a part of. The environment will be tense, there'll be all kinds of gossip and politics going on in these environments, and the toxic leader is at the top of this, enabling this, letting this fester, and it causes all kinds of harm to the people involved. The third and final type of toxic leader behavior I'm going to talk about today that is quite brutal is the self-serving and exploitative behaviors of these bosses. So self-serving, being completely self-centered. It's all about them. And we know that these bosses tend to take credit for other people's work. So if you've experienced this or seen this in action, it's about doing a project really well or creating something that's great, and then the boss takes it as their own, does not give you credit, and oftentimes does not give you appreciation. So you're not appreciated for it, and then they steal your thunder. They take full credit. It's like you didn't even exist, that you are nameless and faceless behind the scenes. And this type of leader will often let others do all their work and take credit for it. And it is brutal when that happens because you've worked so hard, and it is completely deflating when they are taking credit for that hard work, or when they're letting others do all the work and taking credit. And there's a difference between a good delegator is a leader who delegates effectively, but they don't let everyone else do everything. Okay, so they're just twiddling their thumbs. They are creating value. They're creating things and outputs, and even more importantly, they're supporting the people that do and giving them credit, appreciation, feedback, constructive feedback for their growth. And I would say another sign that we've seen in the research of these self-serving leaders is they care about their image above all else. They're very concerned with their image. It's all about them. They can be quite vain, quite arrogant, egotistical comes to mind, and it's all about me. They are very self-serving in terms of they're focused on what will give them the most attention. They are often about climbing the ladder themselves, so they will step on other people to get up the ladder. And they're very good at presenting a side of them in a positive way to the higher ups. So they are seen as hardworking. They're seen as a solid leader because the higher ups are only hearing their stories and hearing what comes out of their mouth, and they're not going to the people who report to this toxic boss and hearing the truth. And I really feel strongly about that. The only way to know if a leader is a great leader, a mediocre leader, a toxic leader, is to find out from the people that report to him or her. So with that said, I think that whether the leader is controlling and micromanaging, whether they're creating power dynamics and divides and favoritism in their team, or whether they're self-serving and exploiting others, all of these things are brutal behaviors and are causing a lot of harm to people. So we need to first, make sure that if you're feeling any of these or seeing any of these warning signs, that you know that you are likely reporting to a toxic boss, and that there are ways to navigate this, to set boundaries in the meantime, and to plan your exit. Plan your exit because there is a better situation out there for you. I hope that this episode has been helpful, and I will continue to share these types of episodes around toxic bosses in the future because I really want to make a difference. If I can help eliminate some toxic bosses, help people navigate them so that they can spend less time reporting to a toxic boss, then I have done a service to others to help make work and life healthier and happier. Stay well. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate and review the episode and share with others who may benefit. Visit me on my website at drlaura.live and sign up for my monthly e-newsletter full of tips and resources. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would be delighted to speak with you on your speaking needs. Stay well.